starting today's presentation of the 8-step selling process. So before we get into it, again, before we get into it too deep today, I just want to give some contact or some content of the selling process. I get a lot of people, Mike touched on this yesterday in the Medicare Cafe, but when we talk about a selling process, what we're trying to do is turn sales into a science, a repeatable process, making that a true science and more so making it a habit. The biggest combat that I get when we talk about making the sales process an actual process and not just, winging it every time is that a lot of people say, well, Olivia, I have clients in all steps of life come and talk to me. I have clients with different situations, different concerns come talk to me. So because my clients are so different, there's no way I can do the same thing over and over for each one. I would equate that with going to a doctor's office. I've been to the doctor's office because of headaches. I went to the doctor's office because I had glass lodged in my foot for months that I didn't know about. I went to the doctor's office for colds and sinus infections, but I can tell you, every single time I go to the doctor's office, the process is the exact same. I walk into the waiting room, I check in, I sit down, I fill out forms. Some nurse takes me into the back after waiting, depending on how early I got that day. Nurse takes me into the back, I get my blood drawn, well, maybe not, sometimes I do. I get my height, my weight, and I answer some simple questions with that nurse. Then they take me to my room. After waiting for what seems like forever, a doctor comes in and asks me, so why are you here today? What can I do for you today? Now what happens after that can be very different. Sometimes they prescribe me medication. Sometimes I need a follow-up appointment. Sometimes I get referred to a specialist. But up until that point, that process has been the same every single time I've gone to that doctor's office. So that's exactly how you need to be running your office or running your appointments. Again, this gives you an excellent map on what that looks like. Me and Sadie, we recommend 8 steps. You may see that, well, some of those things I don't necessarily want to do. Some of those things I want to break out into multiple steps, and that's okay. The point is, this is what our 8 steps are, and this is what we recommend for you to do. The sales process, again, like you can see on here, it refers to a repeatable set of steps taken with a prospect to move them through an early stage to a close customer. So really taking them from a prospect to a true client. A good sales process helps you consistently close deals by giving yourself a framework to follow. Absolutely. What we mean by that is if you got to consistently say the same things, do the same things, follow that same process, because and see how that process is working for you. If you change up your sales process every single time, then it's really difficult to tell what works and what doesn't.
Olivia, I do want to add on to that. If you are confident, having a framework is going to give you confidence going into sales, especially once you get it down and it really becomes yours. If you don't look confident, then your prospects and clients aren't going to be confident in what you're selling. So having a framework, this is building confidence. So it's really, really important.
That's perfect. I love that. Confidence is key. Oh, I'm working from home today, and my dog decided he wanted to come in, but he changed his mind. He heard we were talking about Medicare, and he bailed. Okay, so this is what we recommend. This is our 8-step selling process. We're going to go into each one of these steps one by one, but we're going to go through each one by one. But if you look at what kind of the time frame, these appointments take about 45 minutes. And again, we'll talk about how a lot of agents, especially agents that don't have a process, end up having 2-hour-long appointments. And I'm going to tell you exactly why that happens. But again, this is kind of to help combat that, because nobody wants to talk about insurance for 2 hours. We work in the insurance industry and we struggle to talk about it for 2 hours. So nobody wants to have that. If your appointments are lasting 2 hours, I imagine you're probably not closing a ton of sales and you're not getting a ton of referrals because people are very overwhelmed. This is the 8-step process. To start out, I'm actually going to skip the door opener portion of this. The reason why I'm skipping the door opener is because the door opener is how you are in front of that client. So are you and it's typically the door opener is more pointed towards the appointment setting portion of it. Are you, how did you get their information? Were they a turning 65er? Were they somebody who a referral? Were they somebody who send you in a mail lead. So the door opener is basically like, hey, you either ask for this appointment or this is why we're having this conversation. It's more associated with the appointment setting. I don't talk about it in the initial 8 steps. So first things first is we are going to talk about the warm-up process, which roughly is around 8 minutes. Warm up, a lot of people get into the idea that the warm up is all about finding common ground, all about becoming friends with your clients. Now, this warm up process may look very different compared if you are a new client or an existing client. If this is a new client, somebody who doesn't know you from Adam, they agree to an appointment, then in my opinion, in my experience, asking very friendly or small talk conversation, you really haven't earned the right to kind of build that friendship with them, and it can seem extremely forced. In other words, it can seem very non-organic to say like, so tell me about your family, tell me about your kids, because they know why they're in that room, they know why you're sitting with them. So everything up to that point seems very what's the word? I'm trying to say, doesn't seem genuine, very non-sincere, and it's obvious small talk. So it really doesn't accomplish a lot. In the warm-up process, for both, and if you are talking to a current client, then absolutely get caught up that you have the relationship with the current client. So ask them about their kids, ask them about their family, kind of do that small talk because you've earned that with the current client. What I would recommend doing in that warm-up is to set the expectations. You set the expectations in the warm-up. And so one thing that I always like to say is when I'm telling my clients exactly what to expect within the next 45 minutes. So I have it written down here because I'm not so flawless in my speaking words, but we say something along the lines of, first, Mr. Smith, I'm going to ask you some questions just so that I can get to know you and get to know your situation a little bit better. Then I'm going to give you some information and recommendations based on my experience and your goals and budget. We will then make sure you get you qualified for a plan and fill out an application. And then I'll make sure that you get set up with all the perks of being my client. What I just did, I just walked them through very briefly the entire process of that appointment. So they know exactly, they're counting it down themselves and they know exactly what the next step is.
Yes, and I just want to add on to that really quickly. In this process, this whole warm-up is just about making them comfortable. Your job isn't to become their new best friend, but it is to make them comfortable. You have to keep in mind that even though you are there for your job, you don't want to make them feel like they're only money backs to you. You're not selling knives to them. You're selling their healthcare to one of the most vulnerable demographics as far as health issues go. So though this shouldn't take super long, this whole warm-up is just making sure that they're comfortable, whether they're new or they're old clients or current clients. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Making them comfortable is very important, and that will also set an expectation. If you make them comfortable in the beginning, they're going to feel comfortable throughout the rest of the process.
Exactly. Like Pam said, warm up, setting the expectations. Again, if anybody has any questions about the warm up, let us know. This is your time. We're going to go ahead and move on to the third step, which is the fact finding. Again, fact finding should take roughly about 10 minutes. Fact finding is 100% where the cross-selling happens. Because when you fact find, you are again setting the expectations. You are setting the expectations that you're going to discuss other products. So when it comes to fact finding, there's really 2 fact finding methods that we've adopted and see work really well. One of them is just using simple transitional phrases like, tell me about your situation. When a doctor comes into the office and sits down and says, so what are you here for today? Well, I'm not here because I was lonely, wanted a conversation. I'm here because there's glass stuck in my foot and I don't like it there. The doctor then knows what our next steps are. Open-ended questions are a must here because again, you are doing a lot of relationship building here. The more you can get a client to talk, the more you can get a client to converse, the more they feel like you're learning about them, and honestly, the more they like you. People enjoy talking. Whenever they're talking to somebody who's doing more of the listening, inadvertently, it makes them like that person more. And I can say that because I don't know how to shut up. I love everybody because I don't let them talk. I do all the talking, which is not ideal. But again, so that's one way. One way is just the transitional phrase, tell me about your situation. You can also throw in phrases in there like, are you aware of how Medicare works when you leave the hospital? Again, obviously we know we're talking about home health care or short-term care plans, but you're not telling to the client, you're just asking them, are you aware how Medicare works when you leave the hospital? Are you nervous about the cost of being diagnosed with cancer? Is that something, what is your family history with cancer? Asking very open questions and really inciting stories, having your clients and inviting them to tell stories about their experiences. Again, evoking a lot of that emotion. The second way of doing fact finding is actually something that I prefer, not that one's better than the other, but I prefer the form, filling out a form. Just like you do in a doctor's office, you fill out a family history every time you walk in there. I work with an agency out of Northeast Missouri, and they run their office like a doctor's office. They have a full form there, and it has things like, when was your last doctor's appointment? When was the last hospital stay? Asking them questions that you need to know to underwrite policies. But it's also asking questions like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how concerned are you with the cost of cancer? How concerned are you with, leaving your assets in case you go into a nursing home? How concerned are you with the cost of being admitted into a hospital? So whenever you bring up those topics later, you bring up those products, it makes sense because you set the expectations. It's something that you need to worry about. So again, either use those transitional phrases or those forms, whatever works best for your office. Okay. The next, and again, that's what we have for fact finding. Any questions about the fact finding portion? Again, biggest recommendations is to ask those open-ended questions. And Scott made such an amazing point. He says utilizing a form also helps you justify those personal questions. Because keep in mind, again, all about setting the expectations. I'm going to be asking you about your health. I'm going to be asking you about your financial situation, but I have to know this information so I can get to know what plan best suits your lifestyle and your wallet. Again, it justifies that, Scott. I can't agree with you more. The next portion is going to be to educate and uncover the need. The reason why this is actually probably where the most experienced agents get hung up. Agents who have been in this industry for a long time, they want to show their expertise because, again, there's a lot to know about Medicare. So what ends up happening is that they show up and they throw up. They have 2-hour-long appointments because they're teaching somebody the ins and outs of Medicare. Keep in mind, your clients, they care about 3 things. They care about the cost, they care about their doctors, and they care about their drugs. Anything beyond, giving them any information beyond what applies to those 3 aspects is completely wasted. Humans, because we have very short attention spans, tend to remember about 20% of what you're telling them, which again, to me, since I train for a living, and Sadie, since we do this, I fully recognize you guys are going to remember 20% of this, which is why the follow-up, sending all the follow-up information is so important. But if you spend 2 hours talking about Medicare 101 with a person, they're going to feel overwhelmed, they're going to feel exhausted, and they're not going to want to put any of their other friends in that situation where they have to listen to somebody talk for 2 hours. We can't compete with Spielberg. So, yes. Let's see. And then Pam put on here, suggestion is to set a timer at the beginning of appointment to respect their time and yours. Absolutely, set that timer and again, set the expectation. Let the client know that, hey, this is how much time we should spend. I want to respect your time, so I'll set a timer. I don't see a problem with that at all. So this is also when you're educating, I put on here, and it's very purposeful. I put on here, and I'm sorry, I'm looking around my screen. You have to work with my home studio here. I put on here, uncover the need while educating your client. This is the portion of the appointment where you're teaching them what Medicare covers, However, where agents make a huge mistake is they don't even touch on all the things Medicare doesn't cover. They only explain how Medicare works. They don't explain the risk the client is still susceptible to. So this will look different depending on if this is a brand new to you client or if it's somebody that you have a previous relationship with. If it's a person who is brand new to you, we recommend doing the two-prong approach or the two-option approach for a brand new client. This is a portion of the Medicare and You handbook. It's like page 6 or page 4. It's right in the beginning. But this is the perfect way to give a compliant sales presentation and covering both the Medicare supplement and the Medicare Advantage options. It's an or option. It's wonderful. It's perfect. The thing is, if it's not included on that screen, your clients really don't care about it. Do your clients care about what the Part A deductible and how the Part A deductible works? No. If they go to the hospital, they'll give you a call. Do they really care about, how blood is going to be covered based on if they go and they get that done in or out of office? Some of them may, but if they're not asking about it, they genuinely don't care about it. Give them what is on that information. This process takes about 10 minutes. It's a full 10-minute process to kind of educate them the pros and cons of each side. But again, much more important than covering exactly what Medicare covers is making sure they know the risks, educating on the risks that they're still susceptible to. And then kind of help them come up with how comfortable are they with that risk. Do they know that close to 70% of costs associated with cancer are non-medical? Do they know that, A? And B, are they comfortable with that? Some people will say, I've never had cancer in my family. It's not something I'm worried about. I'm not worried about that. Perfect. They may not think they need cancer insurance, but at least they know that they have a risk. The worst thing you want to hear is somebody going to the dentist, having to have teeth removed or having to have crowns filled, thinking Medicare is going to cover it, and then they end up getting caught with a huge bill because you did not educate them. Let's see, some questions you're going to get to. Sadie, you go ahead and I'm going to read the questions.
Sure. I was just going to say that this part in the process is really a good time for you to shine as not just an insurance agent, but as an advisor. You're showing them that you have all this knowledge, and you're showing them, you're proving to them that they've come to the right person because you know your stuff and that you're there to take care of them. If you come in, especially if you can narrow it down, it also proves a lot if you can educate them, give them the information that they need in a short amount of time. That shows that you're really versed. But yeah, this is a really awesome time in your process to show that you are an advisor and that they've come to the right place.
I can't agree more with Sadie. If a person wanted to know Medicare 101, they wouldn't need you, the expert. If they wanted to become experts in Medicare, why would they come to you? Like for me, I don't know anything about the stock market. I don't know anything about cars. I don't want to go to a mechanic and they teach me how to fix my car. I just want to go to the mechanic and get it handled. That is what your job is. So Matt asked the question, what are the 3 things that your clients care about again? Again, when it comes to Medicare, when it comes to their health care, they want to know how much is it going to cost them. So what's the premiums, co-pays, deductibles? Can they see their doctor? Especially if they have loyalty to that doctor. And number 3, can they take their medication? What's it going to cost for them to take the prescriptions that they're currently on? That's what you need to educate them, how their insurance affects those 3 things. Pam says, and by using the Medicare and You handbook, you know where you are getting your information. It takes those walls down. Something I kind of forgot to mention that Pam brings up a really great point. At this point in the appointment process, we've kept screens out of it. And by that, I mean that you are not on, we talked about the importance of CRMs. You're not on your CRM taking notes about the client. You're not, the online Googling stuff at this point. You are sitting down and having a conversation with them. If at some point you do need to have a screen, I fully understand. I'm an electronic person. Even my notes for today are taken with an iPad. Make sure that that screen is visible to your client. And the reason being is because there is something called a technological barrier. When there's a physical screen between me and my client, they don't know if I'm paying attention. They don't know what I'm writing about them. It takes the focus off of what you're telling them and puts it on this little thing in the back of their head that says, what are they saying about me? What are they looking at? So you want to make sure the focus is 100% of the content. If you do have a screen, make sure your clients can see the screen. Dean says, do we have a questionnaire that we recommend? I have a few geared towards financial planning, but would like to integrate more Medicare related questions. Dean, yes, we do. We do have a fact finder on Senior Marketing Specialist website. There's kind of two of them. One of them is very similar to that form that I recommended. There's also something called the 4 circles presentation that has one circle is home health care, one circle is recovery care, the other is your medical coverage, cancer insurance, and your final expenses. But those circles can be filled with anything. And it just, again, is what are your circles filled? So we can absolutely get those sent to you. And then Lori says, it's Mark and Lori. Hi, Mark and Lori. She said, since we can't use non-approved Medicare docs, this is what we've been using for years. This is what I've been using for years. Absolutely. The Medicare and You Handbook is an amazing tool to compliantly show a client. And again, it's a government document and it's a chart that they should be familiar with seeing. We have a really awesome video on SMS University called Presenting and Selling a Medicare Supplement in 25 Minutes. It shows you exactly how to use this. So after this, go to SMS University, click on the sales training and the ride along, and then it's on there again how to present and sell a Medicare supplement in under 25 minutes. So this is what it looks like for a new client. I don't care if they've been on Medicare for 30 years seems exhausting. I don't care if they've been on Medicare for a minute. If they've been on Medicare for 5 years, I don't care. They still need to have this presentation because you don't know what their previous agent sold them or how they were sold. They may have worked with an agent that absolutely hated Medicare supplements and hated Medicare Advantage and did not properly teach your client what their options are. So if they're new to you, this is the presentation they get. This is the education that they get. If they're not new to you, then again, you review, you educate, you let them know, because again, we do these reviews every AEP. We said, this is what your plan's going to look like in 2021. Are you comfortable with that? Do you want to change plans? How are you doing on their rate increases? You review and educate them, but more importantly on this, you're educating on their exposed risks. Asking them questions like, I haven't seen you in a year. What's changed? What's changed in the past year? Do you have any concerns? Last time we met, we talked a little bit about cancer insurance. Do you have any of your concerns raised on that? Have you come into any money that you're worried about losing in the event that you end up in a long-term care facility? Again, you're just making sure that you're educating them fully on these risks. The next step in the selling process is presenting solutions. So here is, again, what we're talking about is again, I love this phrase. It's something that Mike came up with, but it says, based on the information you gave me, I would suggest a Medicare supplement plan with a cancer insurance policy. I've had other clients take this route, so let's see if it works for you. I love that. What you're doing here is you're building a benefit package. What you're doing is you're taking multiple products. Maybe they want a Medicare Advantage plan with a hospital indemnity plan, but you're smooshing it all together. You're building in a comprehensive benefit package. I love that. I love, this isn't a hard sell. You're not trying to manipulate anybody. You're just letting them know your options. On the other hand, something that you're noticing is that we haven't even begun shopping yet. We haven't started even saying, I recommend a United Healthcare AARP MedSup with a Cigna cancer insurance plan. We're keeping companies out of it because we don't know what companies are going to work for them yet. We don't know that yet. So you're just building them what that benefit package looks like. When you offer the product, this is the part where I've learned something called the takeaway close. And that's whenever you present them the option and then you say, but hold on, let's make sure you qualify first. What that does is when you kind of, in a very slight way, kind of take away that option, people tend to want it more. People tend to be like, oh, wait, I may not get that. Okay, so now they're highly invested in making sure that they qualify in that plan. So I really like the transition of, okay, well, before we get too far, let's first go ahead and make sure that you qualify with these plans via your underwriting, via your financial goals, things like that. This is where we start shopping in the process. This is where we start getting out Medicare Center. We shop Medicare Advantage plan, shop cancer insurance, MedSat plan. This is where we start quoting them, quoting those ideas. I then like to say at the end of it, this is your final close, and it's still a soft close. I hate manipulative sales. I hate when people are like, oh, walk into the house and ask for a glass of water, so they get in the mode of giving you things. Like, no, that's a traditional old school sales style. What we are, we're not sellers. We're not salesmen. I don't know. We don't sell things. We are advisors. So this is the close that I adopt. I really like the, we can have this coverage start the 1st of next month. Does that work for you? Yes or no? Up until this point of the sales process, we've been really focused on open-ended questions. We want to get them talking. We want to get them to share stories and share emotions about this. When you're asking for the close, it's a simple yes or no question. Sadie, anything to add on this?
Nothing to add. That was great.
Like I said, I'm a talker. I don't let others talk. Don't be an Olivia. The less you talk, the better. Again, so this is where you're asking for a yes or no. No's are not bad. No's, embrace the no, people. If you are afraid to mention something because you're afraid of rejection, get over that immediately. No is a good thing because no means that they made a decision based on the information that you gave them. That means that if something happens later on the road, they maybe say they said no to cancer insurance. If something happens that their neighbor gets diagnosed with cancer and they see the impact that that has on them, they at least know that you offer cancer insurance. So they're not going to call up a 1-800 number, and they're not going to do their own research. They're going to call you immediately. So if you are nervous about hearing no, that's part of the job. We get paid for the no's. So just keep that in mind. If they say no, ask why. Say, well, is this something, are you uncomfortable with the price range? I actually learned this from a conspiracy theorist. It was somebody who was actually trying to work to help conspiracy theorists, and it was some sort of therapy. I don't know, I lost focus. But what they said is if you use the function of would you say yes if conversation. So they were talking about the land moon. They didn't believe that the moon landing was real. And they said, would you believe in the land moon would you believe in the moon landing if you were able to see the footprints yourself? If the person said, yes, I would believe in that, then you can say, okay, well, here's these pictures, you understand that. But if they say no, then you can identify, okay, well, that's not why they don't want it. So a question you would ask is, would you be interested in this policy if it didn't cost so much? If they say yes, then you recognize, okay, price is a factor. Let's go ahead and lower that benefit. Is this something that you would want? So again, it helps you, that question of would you say yes if will help you better identify what the exact sticking point of saying no to that policy is.
Yeah, and I like what Pam said here. She says, no could mean that they need more information too, which is very true. But also that's a great point as to why it's so important to have a solid process down. Because if you have a process down, then you know that you're checking all your boxes, you're going through your process, and if they say no, you can feel confident that you've done what you needed to do and that they really just don't want it. So no could mean that they need more information, but having a solid process down, which takes a while. You're not going to get your process down on the very first time. It's going to take a while, but it'll give you confidence that you have checked your boxes and you've done what you needed to do. And if not, ask them that question. What would make a difference? What would make you say yes? Maybe don't phrase it like that, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so perfectly said. And exactly to Pam's point, I would much rather hear no than one of these three things. I want to think about it. I want to talk to my neighbor. I want to talk to my daughter, my son. I'm not really sure if this is the right one for me. If you're hearing one of these three things, then really there are one of four things happened that, again, you need to reevaluate your sales process to fix in the future. One, they either don't value or don't trust you. A lot of times they'll say, well, I'm going to go buy this policy from somebody else. It's because if they want a second opinion, they don't value your input or they don't trust what you have to say. So you need to fix that in your sales process. Two, they maybe don't see value in the plan. You know, and for example, like if it's something like with the cancer insurance policy, if someone is genuinely not concerned with cancer, you know, maybe you need to work on your sales presentation. Maybe you need to figure out how to educate better on those risks. But some people are just not concerned with it. Move on. Number three, they don't feel the urgency. They always think, well, I'm not worried about that today. That's a tomorrow problem. Maybe next time we meet, we can talk about this. So you're not presenting it correctly. You're not educating it correctly because they don't feel any urgency with that. And again, like Pam said, maybe you didn't give them enough information. More likely is that you gave them too much information. Again, a lot of people who get the 2-hour-long appointments are extremely overwhelmed that they can't, and like they're just mentally fried, they can't possibly make another decision. The more complicated you make the process, the more complicated it is to get a yes. The next step, and we're winding down here, guys, the rest of it is really easy. You've done all the hard work. The next step is step number 6, and that is the application process. This is where you get to let your hair down and you get to truly relax. This is actually where I start asking them the questions that are more personal questions, not related to their insurance. You know, where do you guys like to vacation? What do your kids do? You know, what do you do for fun? What kind of cars do you enjoy driving? This is where, because you've built the relationship, you worked your butt off, you've proven your value. So this is where this conversation starts to seem really organic. And this is where you build the relationship. You build a lot of client loyalty here because people want to work with their friends. You've earned at this point, you've earned the right to be their friend, which sounds pretty silly, but yeah, again, this is where, again, if you're doing e-applications, I highly recommend e-applications. I've said it so many times, make sure they see the screen. Make sure whenever you're asking them what their height and weight is, that they see that question on the application and they understand why you're asking that. So just make sure that you're very conscious of that technological barrier. The last thing I'll say about this is that you are done selling. If at this point in the appointment you're like, oh crap, I forgot to talk to them about final expense, set a follow-up appointment. Let them know, like, hey, we actually didn't get to cover everything today, but I want to respect your time. Let's set up a follow-up appointment here in a couple months. We need to talk about your final expenses. Stop selling. It's like if I went to a store, I went to a clothing store, and I bought a shirt, I'm in the checkout line, and the person ringing me out or checking me out then says, hey, would you want a pair of pants with that? I've moved on. I'm done shopping. I've already checked out. I've already given you my card information. I will just move on to the next thing. So don't make that same mistake. All of your cross-selling should be done well before you start filling out applications. And Bernadette says she has to leave. Completely understand, Bernadette. We're almost done. This is recorded, so we'll get you the content, and thank you. After, again, this is probably, we've said it so many times this presentation, there is nothing more important than setting the expectations. Step 7, set the expectations for what to expect after the fact. Success, in my true opinion, if I am known for saying anything in my lifetime, I want to be known for this quote, which is success is measured by how well expectations are met. That is how you truly measure success. If you're talking to an individual and they're expecting an underwriter to make a decision the next day and it takes 2 weeks, we as agents, we know, hey, we expect it if you're for certain carriers, underwriting to take a little bit of time. But if your clients don't get an answer the next day and they were expecting that, then they're gonna be very upset. Even though everything's going fine, there's nothing wrong, because they have the wrong expectations, they're gonna see that as an unsuccessful transaction. So making sure you're setting the expectations for what this looks like to be your client and have that policy throughout the rest of the year. A big component of this is if your clients are surprised to hear from you throughout the year, if they don't understand why you're calling them 3 months after their appointment, then you didn't set the proper expectations of what it's like and the benefits of being your client.
Well, also, again, that's one of those things you'll notice that we've mentioned throughout this process. It's the little things that sets you apart from being just a salesman and an advisor. Letting them know that you're going to contact them after you've already made that sale is letting them know that you're there more than just for their money. You're there to help them out with something that is so important like healthcare. So set those expectations. Let them know that they're going to be taken care of. Let them know that you are there even after you leave their house or they leave your office.
Such a good point. Reach it. Here is what we look at of how to set the expectations. You let them know, all right, Mr. Smith, we're going to go ahead and send in this application. Your coverage is going to start next Friday. Your coverage is going to start the 1st of the month. You're going to get notified from the carrier one way or the other. If they tell you that you don't get or that you don't qualify for the coverage, they'll let you know, but you should get a letter from them here soon. After that, you'll get your card in the mail here in a couple weeks. So if you don't get those cards, call me. We'll make sure that that gets rectified. After all this, again, this is where you start setting the expectations of what it's like to your client. You let them know, I'm going to go ahead and get you on my quarterly newsletter. I have a lot of cool information out there about, about fun things to do, the grandkids, fun recipes. Again, Senior Marketing Specialist has a quarterly newsletter that you can be using. And then let them know. And also Medicare recommends that we meet on an annual basis to cover, because again, these plans can change year to year. So we'll go ahead and let's set up a follow-up appointment for October 18th. Or like October 18th. Today is Wednesday. Do Wednesdays typically work for you? I'll go ahead and put you on the calendar. I'll make sure to call or remind you about your appointment when it comes closer to time. Set the expectations. That way, if your client doesn't get their cards in 3 days, they know it's okay. My agent told me it can take up to 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll kick some of those unnecessary calls in the bud as well. Ooh, Pam, good point. Sadie, why don't you read off what Pam said? Great advice.
Sure, yeah. Pam says, I started doing a recap email from the appointment to remind them of what happens next and what plans were picked. So she's reviewing and then she's setting expectations all in one follow-up email. So that way they can go back and refer to what happened and what to expect whenever they need to. Yeah, Pam, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Because again, like we mentioned, your client's gonna remember 20%, if we're lucky, of what was said. So making sure you send them an email to recap, this is what happened. We work with an agency that I absolutely love, and something that they do that's really cool is they have one of those accordion folders, and each folder will have a spot for different products. So they'll have a final expense spot, cancer spot, dental, vision, hearing, long-term care, their medical insurance, and other products that they offer. And so they'll physically put a copy of the policy in that accordion folder and hand it to their clients and say, if you have, if your family has questions on what you have, show them this folder. What I love about that, it's value add. The folder is branded to the nines with that agent's information, so it does a lot of brand consistency, builds that familiarity in their head, and it also shows all the empty slots of coverages that client doesn't have. It's a really low impact or low key, I don't know what else to say, non-aggressive way to say, hey, we need to talk about these other coverages. So it's really creative, but again, it's just something that setting the expectations of, hey, here's all the things that we need to cover. That is it. This 8th step is the retention process. The retention process is a training all of its own. It works 12 months out of the year is your 8th step. So Brian, it kind of is actually 7. So I just wanted to be fancy. But the 8th step is something that you do all year round. We don't have time to talk about it today. It's already been 40 minutes. But we are more than happy to maybe do, if you're interested, we are more than happy to do a retention webinar for you in the upcoming weeks, because it is wildly important if you own an agency, for sure. Get your process down, adjust it. We do this 8 steps. Some people may say, well, I want to do this differently. I want to do that differently, or think, I don't really like the wording you used here. That's just what we do. That's what works for us. You get it down. The important is consistency. Consistency. Repeat the process so that it's measurable, so you know what works and what doesn't. That is it, you guys. That is the 8-step selling process. Again, if you're interested in learning more about how to sell or transitional phrases for certain products, go to smsteam.net, click the training tab that takes you to our university. We have ride-alongs so you can watch mock appointments. We have ideas and tips and tricks to sell each product individually. We have a Medicare 101 training there, tons of a ton of extra information on there. So make sure you go and check that out, or again, talk to our accounts team or our outreach team to make sure you're set up with the right products. Because again, I guess the idea is a knight can't take down a dragon without the sword. You can't help your clients without the right policies in place. So make sure that your agency is set up to take care of your clients properly. Again, reading, again, guys, this is the chance. Any questions, comments, concerns, threats, or promises, or if you just want to tell us that you love Sadie and myself, you hate Sadie and myself, I mean, that's fine. That's how you feel. Just let us know. Thank you guys so much for the accolades. Richard said he loves that accordion file idea. Yes, yes, yes. It works. It's a visual. Somebody can see what policies they do and do not have. Lonnie, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Let's see. Brian, no, we don't have physical ride-alongs specifically with Mike. There's too many forms. HR would have a heyday. We don't let public. Thank you guys. Lori asked the question, and again, Sadie, feel free to interrupt me because, like I mentioned, I don't know how to not talk. Lori asked, were there any Medicare benefits that were taken away this year? Nothing that was taken away. Of course, you did see the Medicare Part B price went up, Part B deductible, Part A deductible. Of course, the money prices of things went up substantially. However, for your clients who are interested in Medicare Advantage plans, they saw a ton of additional benefits with like dental, vision, hearing, over-the-counter drug medications. Obviously, Teladoc is huge this year. So Medicare Advantage plans did see a huge uptick in benefits, but I don't recall anything being taken away as far as benefits for Medicare. If you're worried about the Biden administration taking away the $35 insulin, there was a lot of talk about that. That hasn't, nor probably will it happen. So that's not a thing yet.
I like what Dean said here. He says, I always tell the prospect at the start that they can ask me any questions during our meeting or after, because we will cover a lot of info. I think it's so important that you let your client or prospect know that they have a voice in the process, that you're there to lead it, but it's about them. So let them know that this is a conversation. It's not just something that you're dragging them through. So Dean, that's a really important point to bring up. Let them know, because it can be intimidating, right? To like go through something like this. So yeah, let them know that they have a voice. I think that's really important.
And then Sharon, such a great point. Sharon said, hey, I'm a 2-hourer. I end up doing a lot of social work for the low income situation, and this helps me bringing back time. This helps with ideas of bringing back time. Again, here's my point when it comes to 2 hours. If you have a 2-hour long appointment because your client needs that, again, we're going off what the standard is. If you are making the appointment last 2 hours because you are going into how the Part A deductible works in general, then that's not ideal. But if you are seriously doing things like signing them up for programs to help them save money, using programs like Benefits Checkup or Needy Meds or Not Good RX, Clever RX, if you're truly finding ways to find premium, save them money, and you're actually helping them within that 2-hour period and they're requiring that time, absolutely make sure you're giving the clients the time that they want or the time that they need. But if you're making the appointment last 2 hours, again, because you can't stop talking about Medicare, they're gonna have a rough time. So yes, some of them, and again, like I definitely sat across the table from people who were asking me very specific questions about how Part B covered blood transfusions and how home health care worked as on the third Wednesday of each month. I've definitely been in those situations. Answer those questions. You'll have those clients. Just know that's not the norm. You always have to adjust for what your clients want. Just like some of my doctor visits are 5 minutes, some of my doctor visits are 35 minutes. It just depends on what's important to your client. Let's see. see. Oh, Sharon saying, "Aw," or not Sharon. Brian is saying Sharon is an angel. Let's see. Of course, Scott, thank you so much for your kind words. We are absolutely here for you guys to answer any and all questions. I believe Hannah said that she's going to be using this process. Again, Hannah, thank you so much. Again, this process, you may find something that works better for you, but get a process, stick with it, make it a habit. I believe Sadie and I have answered all of these questions. So if we haven't answered your questions, retype it because my eyes are playing tricks on me, I guess.
It looks like here Lori said, when clients have a Medigap plan and move to a different state, how does the insurer figure out the increases? That's a good question.
Depends on the carrier, depends on the state. Obviously with med subs, we know that med subs they don't require a network of doctors. So if they buy a med sub in Florida and they move to California, that med sub goes with them. But what you're asking about is the rates. Some carriers will say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and allow you to keep the rates of the previous state. Other carriers will say, yeah, well, we're going to wait until your policy anniversary. We're going to upgrade you. We're going to wait or we're going to lower your premiums. We're going to raise your premiums, whatever the case may be, based on what the new state is. Some carriers will say, well, we don't have a product in that new state, so this is how we're going to interpret that. Depends on the state, depends on the carrier. Call and talk to our support team, and we'll give you exactly how the carriers handle it. I don't have the information. I hate to even give you an idea off the top of my head because I would rather do the research and tell you right the first time, but just know that it's going to be different per carrier. Let's see. Yeah, Dean, he says, back to questions they may ask. I like to relieve their concern by feeling dumb, by joking about their deer in headlights. I don't think I read that right. I like to relieve their concern about feeling dumb. Oh, yeah. Okay, I read it right the second time. I like to make sure they feel relieved about them feeling dumb by joking about being a deer in headlights. 100%. It's always, it's what we always say, making sure people know there aren't stupid questions. I always let people know, hey, especially like when I'm doing a Medicare one-on-one with agents, the first thing I always say is, there's a ton of information here. You're not going to remember it all. Please do not stress out because you're not going to remember everything we talked about today. But that's why you have us. We are here to take care of you 365, 7 days a week. Please, please don't feel like you have to know it all because you have us as the resource. 100% what you tell your clients, hey, you don't have to know Medicare 101. That's why you have me. You don't have to know the ins and outs of your coverage. That's why you have me. If you have questions, give me a call first.
And also for those, you will have clients and prospects that maybe they're like old teachers, or you're going to come across some clients that do want to know all the information. I think that's one reason why it is important to be using examples and showing them, incorporating the Medicare and You book into your process, because they have you, but also incorporating this Medicare and You book that they get in the mail that they can get on Medicare.gov. It's also showing those clients that want more, that you don't have time to explain all of it in this in your selling process here. It gives them a resource to answer those little questions as well. At least they know if they can't ask you at the time, they have another resource as well. Most of the time your clients aren't going to be like that, but every once in a while you will come across someone that does want to know all the answers and will have a lot of questions like that.
For sure. I guess what it is, you got to find out what's important to your client, your fact finding what's important to them, and then base your sales around them. But again, the process is the same the entire time. The content may look a little different depending on the questions asked, depending on what's important to your client. The process stays the same. Any other questions, comments, or concerns, threats, and/or promises, just let us know. Put them in that questionnaire box. I've really enjoyed today's presentation. You all have made this wonderful. Love it whenever I get to have an opportunity to talk with individuals who have these questions, who are engaged like that. So again, can't thank you guys enough for hanging out with Sadie and I today.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you have any questions, call us, give us a call. We have a team for every question that you'd have. Yeah, absolutely. And also be looking out for follow-up email as well from this.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you all so much. We will talk to you later. And if you enjoyed today's presentation, make sure you join Sadie and I a week from today. We'll be going over cancer insurance and the cost of cancer, the non-medical cost of cancer, and what you can do to help protect your clients. So we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
Bye, thanks.